Mm-hmm.
At the age of 15, I went to the DMV to receive my driving permit. While filling out the paperwork for my permit, I checked the little box that said organ donor. It wasn't anything that I needed to actually think about. Every person should be an organ donor. Even me, at the age of 15, knew how important it was to be one. Organ donors save lives, but there are more lives that need to be saved, and there aren't enough donors willing to save them. There are a lot of things people do not know about organ donation, like why it is so important and how it works. But people use the myths about organ donation to not become an organ donor. I believe that organ donation is not talked about enough. Why is it so important? According to UNOS, the United Network of Organ Sharing, one person in every 10 minutes is put on the organ donation, the National Transplant List. According to organdonor.gov, in August 2017, more than 116,000 men, women, and children were placed on this waiting list. Unfortunately, every day, about 20 people die while waiting on this list. One person can save up to 8 lives, according to donatelife.net. And the American Transplant Foundation says at least 100 lives can be saved just by tissue donation alone. But only 3 out of 1,000 people who die are organ donors. This is why it is so important. Organ donation happens in a certain way. Organ donor is deceased and pronounced deceased by the physician, but again, only 3 out of 1,000 deaths are organ donors. The ideal candidates for donors are people who have received fatal head trauma, stroke, or a brain aneurysm. CORE says that brain death is an irreversible process where there is no function of the brain activity or the brainstem. People who die of brain death can be put on mechanical ventilation, which keeps their organs vital. DMV.org states that organ procurement organization is contacted by the hospital whenever the donor is pronounced deceased, and they receive consent from the family. And next, they gather up the organ donator's medical history, and then they contact the Organ Procurement and Transplant Network with the blood type, tissue type, height, weight, and spot. No, that's wrong. Next, they contact the Organ Procurement and Transplant Network looking for recipients based on blood type, tissue type, height, weight, and their spot on the waiting list. Next, a surgeon recovers the organs. And lastly, they transplant the organs to the recipient who is already in the hospital and most times already in the operating room waiting for the organs. There are myths that surround organ donation. One of them is that people believe that whenever they are an organ donor, that medical professionals will not try to save their lives as they would if they were not. That is according to donors1.org. First of all, this is illegal, unethical, and straight out absurd. Transplant.org says that medical professionals give each and every patient the best care regardless of whether they are an organ donor or not. Another myth that people believe is that they are unable to have an open casket funeral whenever they become an organ donor. This is definitely not true. The highly skilled surgeons that remove or recover the organs from the donor do so with utmost respect and dignity of the donor so that they can have the open casket funeral. And another myth is that people believe that it is too expensive. They believe that their family will have the burden of the cost that it took to recover the organs for the organ donor. And this is, again, not true. The family of the donor is not responsible in any way for the cost of the recovery and the transplant of the organs. These are just myths. There is absolutely no reason for anyone to not become an organ donor. Listen to the statistics, understand how donation works, and disregard all the myths that you hear. Organ donation may not be important to you now, but what if you need a new heart? Or better yet, what if your child needs one? Organ donation would be important to you then. Let's be honest. What do you plan to do with your organs when you pass away anyway? Why not go out as a savior to someone? You have the opportunity to not only save a life, but multiple lives.